Not too bad, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Radio Cayman's Talk Today with Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It is going to be another terrific Thursday as we invite you to be a part of a discussion, get a chance to talk about pensions with Royal Fidelity Pensions, and then at 1 p.m. we have the opportunity to join Mr. Simon Crowley from, the Money Sense program. You hear with us all the time. Well, he's coming up. I want to talk to share his expertise, his insight. But some open line between now and 12:30 when we talk about pensions. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email talktoday@candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. Thank you for joining us. Got a few minutes of open line. Set the stage, the tone, and invite you to get settled. Hey, maybe you put up your favorite flavor popcorn. Maybe you just decide, you know what, boy, that fried fish just come out of the frying pan. Got the flapjacks all buttered and ready to roll. So be a part of our discussion. 12:30 to 1, we'll talk about pensions. Get a perspective from Royal Fidelity Pensions. And then 1 o'clock, one of the excellent hosts from our Money Sense program, Mr. Simon Caudry, would be our guest. And looking forward to his insight as usual. Chance to continue our discussion so that we appreciate everything that unfolds going forward. Now, many times we look at things and we hear and we repeat, and sometimes it becomes the order of the day, as it were. But do we always, reflect on the importance and choice of words, and not just the semantics? We don't want to need to necessarily engage in wordplay, but the idea of, for those who accept it, who subscribe to it, who are familiar, aware of it, and see it as part of their mantra. The scriptures talk about life and death is in the tongue. So words are powerful. It's unfortunate that for many of us growing up, we hear, oh, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words, no. Sticks and stones might hurt. Words are probably ever more powerful because think about it. Yeah, we looked at, how people speak to people and just the power of the word, how it's so cutting. And it's important that we don't just label and assign and put people in boxes, that we don't control and chastise by the use of words. So be mindful of it. And maybe we'll engage in that and expound on it a little bit further. There are those who are eloquent, who are manipulative, who are able to just through the sheer selection of words to be able to create such power and influence. And then you imagine when those words are combined with sound and other images, whether they're moving or still, whether they're constantly repeated, then they could become ever more powerful in dictating the order of the day. 8949-8037. That's the number we would like you to be familiar with. 1-800-534-8255. And when you are ready, you can always have that to call us here on Talk Today. And you can always use it to call Mr. Art in the mornings for the record and be a part of it. Now, as we've shared, it's important for us increasingly to be available, to engage, to be informed, to be ever much more an interesting part of it. Now, as we reference, we have the opportunities to share with you from Royal Fidelity pensions, the whole notion of pensions given the sort of state of play as it is now. But for those who want more information, they'll be available to share with us and invite you to be a part of the whole discussion, or as it is. So the phone lines will be open. You'll be able to listen to them, get the perspective, and as we be a part of that discussion when we come back from our break, we'll have the opportunity to speak as we shared with you, from the um, idea of pensions, Royal Fidelity Pensions, the pensions administrator, Ms. Carly Crowley, will join us, and then Davis Latter, the Assistant Vice President of Investments for RF Group, will also be part of a discussion. That is the plan for today. All right, let's get ready in a second. Hit the break. When we come back, like I said, your favorite flavor popcorn might be the order of the day. It just might very well be that you've had a chance. Today's Thursday. You were able to go fishing from Tuesday. You might have that fried jack or barra handy. All right, stay tuned for Talk Today and join us right after the break.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Like most of you, I'm at home with the family. We're cooking more, washing more, spending more time on our computers, and the air conditioning units are running more than normal. If I keep this up, my electricity bill will remain high. I'm signing up to my CUC on www.cuc-cayman.com so I can monitor my daily usage. I need to be in control of how much electricity I'm using so that I can manage how much money I spend. Some things need to unplug in this house, and we can't run this AC all day, you hear?
Bring a little bit of luck to your house with Lucky Slice from America. Burgers, steak, and the all-day American breakfast. From Europe, fish and chips, pizza and crepes. And from Asia, sushi.
Breakfast, lunch, or dinner, 7 days a week, delivery or pickup, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. In these difficult times, we can all use a little bit of luck. Keep calm and stay lucky.
Minimize contact. Make your credit card payment by phone. Pay only for food. No delivery fee. No service charge. Certain restrictions apply. Call Lucky Slice Pizza to place your delivery order now. 949-3456.
Order from Cayman Creperie, Mojo Sushi, and Lucky Slice Pizza. Call 949-3456.
All travel is restricted between the 3 Cayman Islands. Anyone wishing to move between the islands must first notify the medical officer of health or director of the sister islands health services. They must also undergo a 14-day mandatory isolation period at a government facility, as well as mandatory testing. Following a negative test at the end of isolation, they will be transported directly to the airport. For more information, go to www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Has being quarantined at home have you looking at your living space differently? Well, Tomlinson Furniture is now offering free island-wide deliveries and phone consultations to help you design a comfortable living space. For inspiration and ideas, browse the Tomlinson Furniture and Mattress Gallery Facebook page, Tomlinson Furniture Cayman on Instagram, or website at tomlinsonfurniture.ky. Open from 9:30 a.m. for phone consultations and orders. Call 949-5383. Tomlinson Furniture and the Mattress Gallery. Free delivery island-wide.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And a special thanks to our very own Kathy Miller and our, sales team helping us to ensure we reach out and provide the opportunity for our public to be informed. We're honored now to join from Royal Fidelity Pensions, Miss Carly Crowley, the pensions administrator, and equally the assistant vice president of investments at the RF Group, Mr. David Slatter. Ms. Crowley, good afternoon to you in particular, and thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, good afternoon. Thank you for having us.
Mr. Slatter, equally, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Yeah, thank you once again, as Carly mentioned. Thank you for having us.
Well, it's important, man. I think this discussion, from the public's perspective, given all that globally, but certainly here on our local level that we're facing the legislation that has been amended, and I guess the subscription by many, or at least a very uptaken interest as to what people should be considering. Very, very appreciative of you joining us and giving us a chance. Could we perhaps start maybe by looking at this whole idea of the, what it is, when we work to consider the pension redemption process? How do we go about it if we were to consider it?
Certainly. Well, for Royal Fidelity, actually, we have it on our website, which is www.royalfidelity.com, and there's a link to the Cayman Islands and a link to the application and the whole process. That it's actually on the Department of Labor and Pension website as well, and I know the other providers have it on their websites. I know that the Department of Labor and Pension actually put out paper copies of the applications in the grocery stores and some other areas as well. So there's many different ways that you can apply. Currently, the offices are closed to people coming in, with the exception, I think, of one or two of the other providers. But you can apply online, and it's as far as through the portals. You can do that as well, and it's a fairly simple system. You must have a notarized government ID to go with the application.
And I know sometimes some people will get a bit particular, is it a color copy, is it a certain size? But in this instance, once the copy of that ID is legible, clear, and notarized, that's acceptable, right?
That's correct. For as far as I know, for us, we accept it. We accept it whether it's color or black and white, as long as it's legible and you can read it. It's perfectly fine.
Okay, and again, just for emphasis and added clarity, because as you shared, we're doing everything electronically. There's nothing for the most part in person. Individuals would be expected to have these documents scanned and then sent via email, or even fax these days if we still have those, right?
Well, we do right now. We just do email because fax is kind of obsolete as far as, and we don't, and our fax machine, quite frankly, here is very, very old. So sometimes it comes through and sometimes it does not. So we do everything by email, and it could be we accept JPEGs and as well as we also have some people who take photos from their phones and send them to us. As long as it's legible and we can read it, that's what we need. And so and then we actually have once you get it, you should get an automatic message stating when you'll get the acknowledgement within 14 days of the acknowledgement of receipt of the application. Within that time, in the 14 days after that, you should get an acknowledgement of either acceptance or if it's declined for whatever reason it's declined. And if it's accepted, you'll give a time frame for the payments to be made.
Okay. And then with that, to receive it, to processing, and then if everything goes as expected, all the documentation is ordered, all the criteria has been, satisfied. What sort of timeline we look at relative to payout, if that is where we end up?
Okay. Well, the law says it's 45 days from the date of the application that payment must be made. So that's within the law, that time frame.
Yeah. So more than likely, it'll probably go to that length of time.
It will, because we need to, as far as we have to wait for investment values to come in for the month of May, which come in June. So once we get those, we can process everything and get it out to everybody. And we know everybody's anxious, and we understand there are some people who are in really dire need of the funds. But since it's investments, that's the way investments work. It's not like a bank account where you can just go and withdraw the money. It's involved in investments, and we have to wait for those values to come in before we can actually make a payout.
Okay. And then that would be sometime in June for the end of May NAV.
Correct. Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And as you shared, at some point, if it's worthwhile, I think many people perhaps not quite fully cognizant of the process that, as you shared, it's not money in the bank account that is as liquid their investments. How is that realization process sort of effective? Shares and units are sold. How is that?
Yes. So when you make a contribution, you're actually purchasing units, investment units, and not dollars. So those dollars go to purchase units. David can probably speak to this more than I can as far as how all the investment actually works. So he'd be the better person to go into more in depth on that one.
All right. Well, David, if you would, we could get into the mix if you want. Or, but go right ahead, man. Thanks.
Okay, so basically you're purchasing units, and so when the units are in investments, and so in order to, every month you have to wait for how the investments perform. So that's the stock market, so it's stocks, equities, and bonds, and cash. So you have to wait for what the performance was for that month and apply it which gets applied for that month. You have to wait for the month to be finalized, correct? So that's why you don't get the value until the following month. So that affects, it can go up or down. As we know, markets have not done fabulously, but they rebounded the last couple of months. So they were really down in March, and it looks like that they've made some kind of rebound for April. And then hopefully this month it'll be even better. So that's why we always say it's always, you really shouldn't be, it's better for you to, if you need the funds, you need the funds, but if you can hold off and see how the market does, this program is till the October 31st. If you want to see if your funds are going to rebound, you still have that time period if you'd like to apply by the end of October. So, we personally, it's like I would like to see my funds kind of come back a little bit before I started taking funds out of my account. But like I said, there are a lot of people who actually need the funds. So it's a personal decision made. We don't ever try to we don't. If you're in need, you're in need. So that's the bottom line. It's a very personal decision that you make, but you do have until October 31st. So people need to keep that in mind, that you don't have to take it out all at the beginning. If you want to wait and see how the markets act in the next few months, you can do so. So you've got that time frame in between there.
Indeed. Now, David, from that perspective, I think we are somewhat aware that the markets sort of go up and down, and there'll be times when it's doing much better. But so far this year, we may have seen February, March, a little bit of a dip. Is it then, if you're watching the financial reports, even a little bit that we may be glimpsing, they're starting to look a little bit better now than it did maybe March, February this year?
Sorry, go ahead. David can answer that one, yes.
Yeah, there's no doubt that the whole COVID-19 pandemic has really been a shock to all markets around the globe. And in March, you had what turned out to be, as usually the case, an overreaction. So the market sold off substantially. And for example, if you use the S&P 500 as your guide, excuse me, it hit all-time high in February of a little over 3,300, and by the middle of March it was down to under 2,200. So one third of its value was lost in a month. Now since then, it's back up to, as of yesterday, 29.71. So it's actually in April it recovered just under 13%, and during May it's up over 2%. So it is it's a volatile time, but I think the markets are looking forward, and they're saying, economies are starting to reopen. You should see improving economic activity going forward. Now, granted, whether it'll be what we call a V-shaped recovery, so the same drastic drop in economic activity, you see an equivalent rebound, or whether it's more of a U-shaped. There's no doubt that today we have more insight into what's happening. So we know there's treatments being worked on, there's vaccines being worked on, there's reasons to be not as pessimistic as you were in March. And the markets are looking forward, and they have rebounded and recovered a lot of the loss. And, if we, based on the advice that we get from the firms that we follow, the expectation is that the market should continue to recover during the course of the year, but there may be some blips along the way. But as Carolee mentioned, you've got till the end of October, so give yourself, if you can, a little more time to see what's happening. Let the markets, gain more insight, and all it takes is the discovery of a treatment. Not the vaccine we know is a little way out, a number of months, if not early next year. But a treatment can be found much sooner, and an effective treatment would completely change the situation. The ability to travel and know there's a treatment in case you did contract COVID-19 would allow the tourism markets in Cayman and other parts of the Caribbean to reopen more quickly, and that would be key for our economies, and also key for the U.S. as well, given the importance of tourism and travel to their economy as well. So there's reason to be cautiously optimistic about the next 12 months versus the level of pessimism and justified pessimism we've had in March and April. But I like to think the glass is half full at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess on one hand, we would see normally probably a lot of pent-up demand given what people have been experiencing, but then is there sufficient, liquidity, purchasing power on the part of the consumer to sort of satisfy that pent-up demand when they go out? Any sort of, from your perspective, David, any sort of projections over the next 4 to 6 months as to what you think would happen with the market? Are you going to see that maybe a more of a U shape or a V shape? Are you going to see that the markets go beyond, for example, Nasdaq and beyond the territory gains that we had, or what do you think? Sorry, David. Okay. Well, are you there, Ms. Crowley?
Yeah, I'm here. I think
Did we lose David?
Dropped off. Yeah.
Okay. Hey, the beautiful parts of technology allows us to sometimes, act as if we're literally in each other's living space, but sometimes it's not always the case. Well, we have a break coming up shortly, but
We have David back.
okay, David's back. See, just like that, we pressed the button, we cloned him. Hey, listen.
Sometimes I accidentally hit the wrong part of the phone, but I think it was just a technical blip, so I called back. Sorry for that.
Okay, well, no problem. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, forecasting 2 to 4 months out. I would. I don't have a crystal ball, so it's difficult to say what's going to happen. But all around the globe, there's been tremendous what they call stimulus, right? To put cash back in people's pockets so that they can weather this pandemic until the economy recovers. There's no doubt there's going to be a long-term impact on the economy, and it's going to take a few years to get back to where we were pre-pandemic. But there's also, in the case of the United States, trillions of dollars of stimulus, and expectation of another $1 trillion of stimulus by July. This stimulus will generate economic activity. So this is fiscal stimulus. Then, of course, on the monetary side, you've had the Federal Reserve doing what they have to do with quantitative easing as well. So a lot of the when we look at the markets, there's a lot of, what should I say, cash savings, because a lot of people that are still making a salary have been saving more. They're not spending it. So there's pent-up saving, all of this stimulus. It has to go somewhere. And equity markets are definitely going to be one of the recipients of a lot of this excess liquidity. And I think you'll see a return to a more of a bull market versus the current bear market. So over the next 2 to 4 months, who knows? We could have a vaccine discovered in 6 months, or we could have a treatment discovered next month, and we're all looking back going, thank goodness this is behind us. Or there may be some setbacks. But over the next few years, I think we get back to where we were economically, and over the next few months, there's reason to be optimistic that what we're seeing as far as the recovery in the markets will continue. But I don't think it's going to be a smooth ride. There may be some blips along the way. So you're in it for the medium to long term. Then you weather the blips because the markets have historically bounced back.
All right. Well, when we come back from the short break, let's maybe consider the discussion from the perspective of the importance of pensions and that notion that pensions are usually the long haul. But are there other alternatives, to pensions to give people a better perspective sometimes? All right. When we come back, let's revisit the conversation.
We are currently in a soft curfew period in Grand Cayman until 8 o'clock tonight. Persons with surnames A to K are allowed to do banking and shopping on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and those with surnames L through Z are allowed to do the same on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays. Anyone caught breaking curfew is liable on conviction for a fine of $1,000 and to imprisonment for 6 months. For more information, go to www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal, and never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. #Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Don't let the actions of the few continue to impact the majority. If you know of someone who is taking unnecessary risks with social distancing and curfews, talk to them. Remind your siblings, children, parents, and friends of the importance of social distancing. We will all get through these challenging times, but only if we can all work together. #Stay Home Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome back. And as we talk, about pensions, especially the Royal Fidelity pensions, we have the pensions administrator, it's Carly Crowley, and from the IRF Group, the Assistant Vice President of Investments, David Slatter, on our line. Again, thank you for joining us. Maybe in this discussion now, we could focus our attention on the idea that for those who look at retirement investments and going for the long haul, trying to build wealth maybe for our golden years, but even to pass along some legacy for the next generation. But from that, is there somebody else and to invest in pensions, David?
Yeah, I mean, we also have three mutual fund options for individuals who are looking to invest for the long term, as you mentioned. I mean, even at retirement, on average, women are living 20 to 25 years beyond retirement, and men are living a little over 20 years. So you still have a long-term time frame even after retirement. And as you mentioned, if you're looking to leave something for family members, of course, it's truly long-term. We have a targeted income fund, which is fixed income. Then we have an equity fund for the more aggressive investor. And then we also have a hedge strategies fund. And these are very diverse funds. And primarily, so the targeted income fund is primarily in U.S.-based fixed income, whether it be government bonds, government agency bonds, and also U.S. Corporate bonds. So very liquid. The weighted average risk rating is AA, so it's high investment grade, and those securities are very liquid. And on the equity front, we have primarily around 64% is U.S. exposure, and the balance would be international, so Europe and Asia, and a small emerging market exposure. And once again, these are also, you're talking about the S&P 500, you're talking about NASDAQ, you're talking about the names we know in the investment world, also a very liquid portfolio. And then on the hedge strategies fund, this is kind of for somebody who's looking for exposure to equity markets without the same downside risk. The hedge strategies fund provides that opportunity. And on our website, we'll make sure that information on these funds is available. So these are definitely viable opportunities for people to do, as you mentioned, to save for retirement, to save for some important investment objective they have, whether it's for the education for your children, university education, or to leave something for your loved ones later in life.
All right. Well, certainly. And Ms. Crowley, if we may ask, we haven't received a number of messages from some of our listeners, and despite the era in which we live, many people still perhaps a challenge with email. Questions been asked, what if someone isn't able to access email, isn't able to get online and manage that technology? What do they do if they want to either make a subscription, they want to redeem their plan, take advantage of the opportunity? What options exist for them?
Well, the applications are out. I think in the DLP said that they were putting them out in the grocery stores, and all of the grocery stores, and some other areas as well, and some of the stores, so they could actually do it that way. We are arranging to have like a Dropbox put out for people to put their applications in as well. I know some of the other plans are doing that as well. Hopefully, we're in phase 3 of the opening, so hopefully in the next group, they'll be allowing maybe customers to come into the office at some point in time. So there's plenty of opportunity for people, even if they're not savvy, to do that. We do suggest, a lot of people are very savvy, and you can get a friend or something to help you with the application if there's somebody that you know or relative to help you if they can. If you're not able to, if you want to submit it online. But there are paper copies out in the public as well.
Okay, and then respectful, there is a couple, 4 of the messages that were asking when some individuals have said they've tried telephoning into your offices and not getting a response. Is a telephone contact available?
Well, actually, we have 3 different people answering phones right now. Sometimes the main number actually goes into our Fidelity Bank receptionist area. So, and then it gets moved over into the pension area. Probably the best number to call. That's going to be the best number because it'll route you directly to the pension line. But you can call 914-2192, and you should be able to get and be aware that the fact that we do get large volume of calls. And so just have to be patient. And if you do leave a voicemail, you will get a return call back. But we're asking for a little bit of patience right now. We are getting a large volume of calls coming in and a large number of emails. It has calmed down a little bit, but we're still getting them in. So if they could just be patient. But the 914-2192, use that number, and that should be able to get you through directly to somebody eventually.
Oh, great stuff. And then David, perhaps as we were informed, RF Holdings now is the new owner for Fidelity Pensions. Any significance to that? Any particular implications?
Well, I like to think positive. The RF Group been around for 22 years. We're in the Bahamas, Cayman, and Barbados. We have around $2 billion in assets under administration and close to $1 billion in assets under management. That's U.S. and not Caymanian, unfortunately. And, you know, we have a very vibrant corporate finance team, and here in the Bahamas as well as Barbados, we've raised, I think it's $1.8 billion in capital for companies. So we've got a team of around 90 people. So Carolee and her team in the Cayman Islands have the additional 87 members of the team to fall back on. So we're, I think, a sizable entity in the region, and we've been growing, and our intention is to continue to grow and add all of the products and services that we have in Barbados and in the Bahamas and bring them to Cayman as well. So we view it as a very positive development for the Cayman pension plan members.
Okay. Well, certainly it is, as you shared, unprecedented times and perhaps a lot initially for people to absorb. In the early days, maybe people are still trying to wrap their heads around it. From that perspective, Ms. Crowley, what would you say to some of your uh, clients in this time? I know you shared that maybe they could, consider delaying, subscription as opposed to now, maybe later on if they do it. But if people need it, they need it. What is your advice?
Yeah, so basically what I always tell people, and I tell this even outside of this, would be you need power. Knowledge is power. So the more informed you are about what you're doing, the better decision making tools you have. Because the more information you have, you can make a better decision based on your situation. So I always encourage people to ask questions. The only way you're going to know anything is to ask questions and do some investigating on your own. And there's no question. When people tell you they have a stupid question, there's no question that's stupid. I ask stupid questions all the time that I think are stupid, and people tell me they're not stupid. So that's the way I look at it. Life is, that's how you find out. You learn more about pension. You learn more about investments, about what we're invested in, what you're doing, whatever your plan is, even if it's not our plan. Whatever plan you're in, try to find out more information about that. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to be an investment manager and understand investments. People can explain it to you. The average person, you should know a little about, know what your money is invested in, and you should know what your options are. You should also know that this is for the long haul. This is for you so you can retire, so you can, once you turn 60 or 65, you can decide, hey, I now am able to retire. And even if you still work part-time or whatever, you'll still be getting in funds for that as well. So that's what I try to tell people. It's a long haul, but you also need to start to do some education yourself. We can teach you, we can tell you so much, but you need to ask us questions as well to find out what you don't know, and basically with this, you need to get the information so you can make an informed decision. If you can hang in there and see what the markets do, that would be my suggestion. But like I said, if you have a special situation, everybody's got a different situation. So if you can, I would try it and wait and see. Like I said, you have until October 31st. But education is knowledge.
Yeah, indeed. Well, I certainly appreciate it, and hopefully, if we, get an opportunity in the future, if necessary, always avail yourself for using us. As we close out the discussion, anything further, David, you want to share, or Miss Crowley?
Well, I'll just support what Carolee said, is that, the only way you gain knowledge is either by asking a question or being asked the question. And usually the process of asking a question results in both parties learning something new. So there's absolutely no wrong question, no silly question. The last 2 months, very trying for everybody, but we will get through this, and we just need to be resilient. We've made sure that the investments that are made for the pension plan and our mutual funds are resilient. We have diversified portfolios and liquid assets, liquid securities. So we're optimistic about the future of the performance of the pension plan and also the funds. And, time goes quickly. The next, we'll be looking back at this as a past event that we all got through. So remain resilient, remain optimistic. We'll get through it, and I think there's no doubt we've got improved times ahead.
Indeed. Ms. Crowley?
And I would like to say I'm really excited about Royal Fidelity coming into the Cayman Islands. I think it's going to be a great opportunity for people. It's a great opportunity for us, and now we have a wonderful, wonderful team, and we're excited about them coming in. And I mirror what David said. This too shall pass, and we will look back on this as a very trying time. But we will come out ahead at the end.
Amen to that. Well, you guys continue to be safe, and as you move about, maybe through your example, we'll be able to inspire others. Thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
It was a pleasure. And with that, let's pause and take a break. When we come back, please rejoin us as we invite, that fantastic host from Money Sense, Simon Cordray, to be a part of our discussion. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only 2 species that we have here on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international, this is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Coping with a crisis, learning to use Zoom, holding effective online meetings, and making homemade sweet treats are some of the half-dozen classes and workshops that have been added to the schedule of continuing education courses at the University College of the Cayman Islands as a result of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. The 15 courses being offered during the summer semester were added in recent weeks. Good afternoon, I'm Dion Anglin with your headlines and news elsewhere. China is proposing to introduce a new security law in Hong Kong that could ban sedition, secession, and subversion. The move is likely to provoke strong opposition internationally and in Hong Kong, which was last year rocked by months of pro-democracy protests. And a study has estimated that there may have been 36,000 fewer coronavirus-related deaths had the U.S. entered lockdown a week earlier in March. The Columbia University research also estimated that around 83% of deaths could have been avoided if measures had been taken 2 weeks earlier. It suggested that 54,000 fewer people would have died had cities begun locking down on March 1st. That's a wrap of your headlines. I'm Dion Anglin.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Christian Enlightenment Center is now open for deliveries. Call and order your favorite inspirational books, journals, Bibles, Bible cases, church supplies, stationery, and many other unique items. Christian Enlightenment Center, your complete Christian bookstore and more. To place your order for delivery, text or WhatsApp 923-8050 or email us at ceccenter@candw.ky. Check out our website at christianenlightenmentcenter.com. Browse items on your Facebook page by clicking Shop to view all our collections. Opening hours 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday to Saturday.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
You may be home isolating, but your taste buds can explore the world. Dragon Inn Restaurant in Countryside Plaza, offering savory dishes in traditional, authentic, American, Szechuan, Mandarin, Filipino cuisine, and Cantonese style, made fresh daily. Family dinner specials, rich in taste with no MSG. Choose from stir fry, chop suey, chow mein, sweet and sour, and so much more. Call 947-1166. Pick up Monday to Saturday from 10:30 a.m. until 7 p.m. Delivery 7 days per week until 9 p.m. Dragon Inn Restaurant and Countryside Plaza. Daily lunch specials and combinations, bringing international deliciousness to your doorstep. Call 947-1166 to place your order.
You are listening to Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands.
Attention all blood donors, we need a pint from you. Join us at the National Blood Bank this Thursday, 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. The off-campus location at the Red Cross building across from the Farmers Market. Spend 15 minutes, give your pint, and save 3 lives. Curfew day not your day? Not a problem. Visit giveblood.ky, request your letter, and it will be emailed to you. The National Blood Bank Auxiliary location at the Red Cross building. Compliments of the Cayman Islands Red Cross. Community Rotary Club Central, Generali Health Insurance, Car City Fosters Group, and the Cayman Blood Donor Service. Remember, when blood is needed, nothing else will do. This message is courtesy of the Rotary Club Central, supporting the National Blood Bank since 1999. Rotary, connecting the world.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon, and welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us. And one of those opportunities that you should not miss. We have the excellent company of Mr. Simon Cordry, and picking up on the sentiments expressed just with the last segment. Knowledge is power. Well, Mr. Simon, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you. How are you, Sterling?
Listen, I am very thankful. I always try to look at life and say, it could be worse. Be thankful that it is as great as it is. So trust and pray you are well.
Yeah, not bad at all, thank you. Yes, I'm still trying to keep fit and healthy, so that's all that can be asked for at the moment.
All right. Well, I hope that's the case. And now that we've been given license now to exercise, wow, for 2 hours, excellent, man.
I know it makes me a bit nervous. I'm not sure I can exercise for 2 hours, so I feel as though I'm letting everyone down if I don't do my 2 hours. It's a bit of a catch-22. That I feel inadequate by not being able to get up to 2 hours of exercise a day.
Yeah, well, what I feel bad for, all honesty, is some of the boxers, the swimmers, and the other elite athletes, for whom 2 hours is just a warm-up.
Yeah.
If you have the day, why do we have the restrictions the way we do? I don't know, boy. Maybe there's a data figure who believes, they know better than everybody else. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? But Simon, it's great, and I think sometimes we are put in a position where, because people ask a question, because they seek to challenge a particular position, perhaps even they may be willing to advance a particular dialogue, that for some reason it's either misrepresented or more than likely misconstrued. I'm grateful that someone like you with a diplomacy and intellect can help us to navigate that so that we come out of this inspired, intrigued, motivated, but also better informed. This is, they say, a different time for us now. So let's make the most of it, right?
There you go.
Can I start by asking, well, before I start by asking that, let me ask first. Is there anything in particular that you may want to say or share with the listeners? I mean, the mic is yours.
Well, that's a bit of a dangerous proposition, Sterling. You don't want to you don't want to encourage me to go off on a rant right at the beginning. But no, I would simply make the observation that the most important, I think we said this on our last conversation a week or so, 2 weeks ago. I think the most important thing that we can do at all times, but particularly when we are in such uncertain times, is to be open-minded to different perspectives. Now, I may have a viewpoint, and it could be completely and utterly bonkers, and that's absolutely fine, because other people may have viewpoints, and some of what they say may be bonkers, but some of what they say may be right. And the right thing to do is to encourage discussion, encourage debate. Yeah, that's what scientists do. When scientists are trying to find cures for this virus, for instance, they don't go around saying, I know the answer, and then work in a silo and get it done. They accept that they make mistakes. They accept that they will get things wrong. And because of that, they improve their processes. And that should be the case in the study of finance. That should be the case in the study of governance, in all aspects. And I think one thing that we in society often do quite poorly is being willing to listen to contradictory opinions. We feel sometimes that people are picking on us when we say something that they don't like. But that's not necessarily the case. Maybe it is, but it doesn't need to be the case. And if the spirit of which something is said is listened to in a positive spirit, then that's a far better outcome because people can be informed and be educated. And that would be my opening message, which is I hope to encourage people to also express a point of view, because the more points of view we have from people who have perspectives which are of informed nature, the better off we will get to in terms of a long-term output and long-term solutions and recovery stories for the island.
Indeed, and thank you for sharing that, because I think people need to appreciate, as you shared, and in particular, we're talking or we're hearing or follow the science. You know, you may be watching something on the television screen, and there's this long ad about science is going to be the answer and whichever. So if we follow the science, if we look at the scientific method, it is about asking questions. If we say knowledge is not only the equalizer but empowering, but knowledge is the answer, that gives you that sort of quest for knowledge. Um, how then do we get to that point where, as you've shared, that people move from hearing a question or hearing a statement and taking it upon that it's either here's this harebrained idea, this conspiracy theorist, this thing, just because it's not following the party line, to use the political mantra, or it's not singing from the same hymnal, however we phrase it.
Well, I think you mentioned about conspiracy theories, and there's something that I don't want to go off on too big a tangent. I'm always at risk of doing something like that. But there's an important point to note, which is just because someone says something doesn't mean we should always listen to it. There are some people who spout utter nonsense, and they should be called out for spouting utter nonsense. There are conspiracy theories out there, and they get too much air, they get too much airtime, they get too much TV time, too much internet time. And people should be more discerning. That's what science is. It's about listening, evaluating, and if it's rubbish, calling people out on that, on their mistakes and their errors. So that's important. But I do think that we have to be willing as individuals and as a community to accept what mistakes we've made. And I don't say that in terms of just individuals having made mistakes, but it's undoubtedly true. We as a society in Cayman, as a community, have made mistakes in the past in terms of where we've got to and how we've got here, and we have to recognise. And that was and that's one of the themes of the article I wrote last week, which is to say, just because we are where we are today doesn't mean that that's our predestined path. We have the ability to influence where our path is. We just need to be open-minded about issues, errors, and mistakes that we've made, and then we can change the path that we're on, and we can change the direction of travel. And it won't always be for everyone's taste. Not everyone always likes the direction that a path goes. But the definition of democracy is that it's that which the majority are willing to accept, and therefore that's what you end up with.
Indeed. I mean, in accounting, E&OE, right? We always see that at the end of the financial statements, or we did at one point. I haven't seen a financial statement in a long time. But your reference then is accountability. We were talking about accountability. People say things, they should be called on it. We should be able to hold people accountable. Can I then flip the script and then ask the other question? Are we at a risk? We're hearing people say that certain things are not appearing in the media, however we define that, or when it does, it's not necessarily near the top of the newspaper. It's not on the front page. It's buried somewhere back there, or it's taken down from the online site. Even though the person that put it up may have been a political pundit, it may have been a scientist who was just asking a question or positing a particular perspective.
Yeah, censorship. You're talking basically censorship now.
Censorship, yes. Yeah.
And it's the most dangerous thing that a democratic society, in my humble view, can do, because it's an incredibly slippery slope. it's not difficult to imagine pathways to dystopian futures if you don't allow honest questions, reasonable questions to be asked. And any politician that answers or is in receipt of a question that they don't like, if they criticize the questioner, they should be fired from their job, clearly, because that's not the role that they're elected to do. The role of any democratically elected person is to respond to the questions that people like. They may not like the questions, they may not like the alternative point of view. When markets behave, from my perspective, when markets behave differently to how I thought they were going to behave, I don't like it. It's not ideal. I mean, if my portfolio goes up 5%, but the market's gone up 10%, it doesn't make me ecstatic with joy. But that's what's been expressed by other people, and you have to accept that. And that's something that should be done more generally when it comes to discussion and debate and dialogue. It's a healthy thing, and it frustrates me when we see communities all around the world where different perspectives are being often the messenger is being shot as they are asking the question, and really we should be honest enough to call those people out and say you don't deserve the position you have, and people in power should be firing those people.
Right, and sometimes, if I may, the people in power, the electorate, the citizens of a country, sometimes in a democracy, need to understand that they have that power to insist. It may be a government entity, it may be a politically elected individual, it may even be a private sector company that is doing something. We vote whether by the ballot boxes or with our dollars or feet, as it were.
Yeah. Well, that's right. I mean, I referenced the market, didn't I, just a moment ago? Because when in the private sector, if we don't like what a company is doing, we typically don't have to buy their product. That's what competition is. You have other choices. And so if I don't like, I'm going to use some silly examples, if I don't like what Foster's is doing, I can go to Kirk's. And if everyone else thinks the same way, then Woody and his gang are going to think, what the hell's going on, because people aren't shopping with us, and they'll respond to those incentives. But that typically doesn't always happen in government, because they have the power to tax, they have the power to impose regulations, and therefore you can't always go somewhere else. You can't always have that alternative option. So that's why censorship from a government perspective is such a dangerous, dangerous proposition.
And the thing is, some people listening now may think, while we're talking about censorship on the international level, I'll ask you to guide me, simply because I don't want to mistakenly make a comment that is either misconstrued or just error on my part. But for instance, I've had a number of individuals who are using the same social media platforms that people across the globe are using, and they go on their social media page and they ask a question. I was somewhere the other day and this occurred. Is this legal? Is this acceptable? Is this right? This will happen. And they'll describe it, and only going on the premise that they haven't used expletives or they haven't done, other kind of postings. Some people here have said, that was taken down because, what was it? Violated our terms of community usage or what have you. And they said, well, I was just asking a question. I was out walking and I saw this, and is this right? It could have been an unfortunate instance, but if you hear it once or twice or three times, so that level of censorship could be a blanket sort of policy, and it catches up the guy who is looking just to have a way to have his question asked and answered.
Yeah, I might stretch the analogy ever so slightly here, if I might say so. And Robert Mugabe, when he was elected, wasn't elected to become a dictator. It's slippery slopes are defined as that for reasons, right? They're not there because people start off intending to go one way. People morph into something different over time because of the sense of invulnerability and such like. But I think everyone needs to be. You said something at the beginning there about social media, and that I'm not a huge user of social media, and I think people should be more careful of social media, because it's the idea. I once said that the idea that it's appropriate to communicate in 80 characters on Twitter, something that could be much better explained using actual words and prose. It's a degradation of society when you've gone from understanding, learning, and using grammar to a society where you don't use grammar. It seems to me to be a backward step in human evolution. So I think we should be more open-minded to more cogent articles and more cogent prose that's written, as opposed to some of the stuff that's very responsive and very knee-jerk. Those aren't necessarily healthy things to happen, but we should try and encourage more weighty conversations to be taking place.
I agree with you, Fullerman. Thank you for saying that. Maybe that'll be a blurb for our news, headlines. I think we should leave the tweeting to the birds, just my view.
There you go.
But this is the thing, come back to the dialogue and the discourse, even on the talk shows where we're not even necessarily going to be correct on our grammar. We just got to be able to have a way to share what we say. If someone we could limit it to the Cayman context, was to get on a talk show and ask a question or even try to, say something, I wonder how that would be perceived. Would the political machinery look at it unfavorably? Would others, including friends and family, say, "Oh, you're off on a tangent today. Something is off there." Where is this healthy sense of skepticism, of questioning?
Yeah, I think that I'll say a couple of things on that. So, in terms of, you mentioned grammar, and I've never suffered the ability to write an article for a newspaper or on a blog without my mother correcting one element of my grammar, and she did the same in my Compass article last week. So when she listens to this, she'll be cheeks will be rosing up with pride that she's spotted something else on my narrative. But you make a point there, which I think is more common than is healthy in Cayman than it is perhaps in other places, and it's a peculiar one, which we often hear said, or we hear others say it, or we hear others say it about other people, which is a lack of willingness to speak up because people are worried about what it means for their work permit or what it means for their ability to stay on island. And don't get me wrong, I think it's appropriate for people to be respectful of the country in which they live, in the same way that if a lady is in Saudi Arabia, I think they're required to wear the headscarf. That's a culture of a society, and it's not unreasonable to accept the culture if you've chosen to go and live in that place. And so Cayman has a culture like any other place, and you should be respectful of that. But one of the things Cayman has is a democratic culture, although I say democratic, it's pseudo-democratic. We have this slight anachronism of a governor role. But we have a democratic process, and we should therefore not be picking on people who have opinions. People should be free to express opinions, and properly so.
Well, I hear you, but I also think that, as quick as we may say, would probably apply more to the people that you describe. I think it equally applies to the Caymanian voter specifically, in the sense that whether the person is employed in the civil service, probably connected to the civil service, and there's this inherent fear, real or imagined, or the person is somehow friends with a politician or friends of a friend of a politician or of a senior civil servant. There's these various levels of connection, business or personal or community, and that potentially could that hinder people from wanting to voice an opinion.
That's a really interesting one, Sterling, because I'm no expert on civil service governance rules. I've never worked for the civil service, and as it stands, have no intent to. So I've not done any research on their rules. But my understanding is they do, in some circumstances, have restrictions on, and you can understand why. But they have restrictions sometimes on, in some civil servants around the world, on what can be said publicly by people who are employed by the government, because they are obviously servants of the government by definition. So I don't really know if I have a good answer to that particular question you're posing, because of that status in which they have to operate.
Right, but I would venture to say too that probably extends, from what I've come to understand from men in the private sector, that same level of censorship, same level of control, that same level of expectation is equally within the private sector. Some of the larger firms would say, listen, we don't want you as employees engaging publicly in some of this commentary. So it's not just a civil service.
And I think that's, in fairness, that's not unique to Cayman. You get a lot of situations elsewhere in the world where people are restricted from speaking publicly in their professional capacity. But speaking in a professional capacity, if I go on a radio show like yours and start talking and saying who my company is, what I do, that could sound like I'm speaking in a professional capacity. But if I go on your radio show and just wax lyrical in a personal capacity and never mention my company, people should be free to do that sort of thing, I think. The problem in somewhere like Cayman is it's a small community, isn't it? And so if you hear person A come on and speak, you often know where that person works, and that means you're suddenly in a situation where are they speaking personally or are they speaking professionally? So it's a tricky challenge that I think we face here in Cayman.
A very thin line, and I'm glad you referenced that because there are times when I know deliberately I've said, okay, our guest is person A, only giving her perspective on this thing, this is the hat she's wearing, her personal perspective. But sadly, we don't hear that. We know person A is involved with service club, plays with a sports team, works with so and so, married to so and so, child is this, and we see all these things and aren't able to separate that person A is in fact an individual who has a particular perspective on this particular thing and is invited to share that so that we could know that perspective, maybe engage in challenge or be encouraged by it.
Yeah, and it's the peril and it's the positive and the peril of living in a small community because we know each other. That's a positive. Well, not everybody knows each other, but you know what I mean. Because a lot of people know each other. That's a great thing. We have a sense of community. We probably know our neighbours better here than we would do in most other parts of the world. We spend more time with family, friends on island than we would do if we were elsewhere in the world. And so that's a good thing. But we know each other, and therefore, by definition, someone potentially finds it more difficult to speak in a personal capacity because of the baggage that comes with them, because we know about that baggage.
Right. Well, then, so maybe offer up a sense of hope, and I'm not going to, certainly ask that we get into this level of discussion. Certainly, I'll be mindful and follow your lead if you so choose. But you referenced, Cayman being in the perspective that we have in the office of a governor, so that sort of pseudo democracy, or as you placed it, we have this added layer check. It's sort of like the child being home with the older sibling who has been given authority and is in charge, but knows that there's an appeal to the parent in case the older sibling says, well, you can't do this. And the younger child thinks, well, no, that's unreasonable. Goes to mommy or daddy and says, well, can I? So in this case, then maybe there's an added level of protection, an added level of opportunity to engage further without necessarily having to be just seemingly restricted because of the immediate level of the political realm just being at arm's length. Could that not give us a greater semblance of comfort, perhaps participation?
Possibly. I don't know. Though. I think that's a difficult one because I could easily make a very passionate argument about how ridiculous the British government's authority over Cayman is, and I could make a very powerful argument how positive that is. I'm not sure that necessarily translates into how that impacts or affects humans who are living here in Cayman. I would struggle to see the link between those two. So I think those are probably two separate types of conversations.
Okay, fair enough. But again, I guess with that, this is where I think healthy discussion and the ability in a relatively free society to be able to ask questions publicly, engage in conversation. And I'm hopeful that as people, not only take up the opportunity to call and share their thoughts with us, Simon Cordray is our guest, but the phone lines are available to people to engage in it, that it will cause them to appreciate that in a democracy, freedoms and freedom of speech and movement and the like have to be respected, have to be championed, and they have to be preserved because Mugabe, some forget, was once elected, right?
Yes.
He didn't just come in and, at least if my history books are correct, he didn't have a military coup. He was elected. So we have to be careful. Simon, when we come
Zimbabwe was a shining light of the end of colonialism in the British Empire.
Wasn't it the breadbasket at once? Was that what I was called? I think. Certainly.
Your history is probably far better than mine. That was a subject I gave up as soon as I possibly could at school.
Oh man!
So I'm going to profess a bit more ignorance than is healthy on that one.
You know what? It's probably wise we both do. When we come back, could we look at perhaps the performance of the financial markets? Maybe talk of it in relation to pensions. It's a topical issue. People are probably weighing in. Well, should I not? When should I? Could we talk a little bit about that?
Yep, I will caffeinate myself and come in all cylinders blazing.
There you go. Well, Simon Cordray is our guest. The phone lines are open. I'm going to ask him for his insight, intellect, and on the issue of pensions and some other things. If you want to call, well, we give you two options, 949-8037, or if you have a flow number, you can dial us on 1-800-534-8255. It's a toll-free call, so stay tuned for Talk Today.
Obey the laws and wear the gauze. Protect your jaws from septic paws. Stay clean, Cayman, with hand sanitizer from $3.25, 10 surgical masks for $9.99, and 2 packs of KN95 masks for $6.99. Wholesale pricing available at all 5 Liquor for Less locations: Shedden Road, North Church Street, Savannah, Northside, and the McClendon Drive Airport location. Don't miss the incredible lockdown price markdown and manager specials exclusively at Liquor for Less. Hundreds of fine starting from cases of ice cold below wholesale prices, and save $9 off liters. Prices so low we can't say it on the radio. Liquor for Less enforces the wearing of masks and social distancing while in store, and encourage other preventative measures to help stop the spread of COVID-19, such as consistent hand washing and only leaving home for essential purposes.
Are you finding that your young child is anxious? Coping with COVID-19 related stress can be harder for children as they have less experience of facing big challenges. Signs that your child may need emotional support can include frequent crying or irritation, toileting accidents or bedwetting, changes in sleeping habits and appetite, frequent arguing or fighting with others, and increased physical ailments such as unexplained illnesses. For free and confidential support, call the Mental Health Helpline weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. at 1-800-534-MIND. That's 1-800-534-6463.
Beach access is now allowed using the last named protocols, but strictly for exercise, including swimming. Persons can exercise for up to 2 hours each day between 5:15 a.m. and 7 p.m. daily. Shoreline fishing and fishing by boat are allowed, but limited to 2 persons per boat. Strata pools can be used for swimming, and tennis courts can also be used, but are limited to members of a single household or a maximum of 2 persons with social distancing maintained. All residents must wear face masks or other face coverings while taking public transportation, inside buildings, or other public places. For more information and to view the new regulations in full, go to www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Fidelity Bank would like to thank all essential workers. We salute your efforts and thank you for the sacrifices you've made to keep us all safe. During these challenging times we're facing, our top priority is the health and safety of the communities we serve. And while it's true that things are changing rapidly every day, one thing that will never change is our commitment to giving you the best and sound financial solutions to help you during and after the coronavirus pandemic. At Fidelity Bank, our focus will always be you. Fidelity, we're good for you.
For nearly 20 years, Kingsport Center has been the heart of the Cayman fitness and wellness community. In order to ensure the welfare of all, we are temporarily closed until further notified by the Cayman Islands government that it is safe to reopen. During these trying times, we encourage everyone to maintain a healthy lifestyle, mind, body, and soul. We look forward to continuing providing you with world-class service in the very near future. Remain strong and continue to show the world the power of Cayman unity. Kingsport Center, your one-stop shop for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And a special thanks again to one of our Money Sense hosts, Mr. Simon Cordry, for joining us. And Simon, we do have a caller joining us, so as we get into our discussion first, let's just go to our phones and invite a caller. Good afternoon, welcome, thanks for calling.
Good afternoon. It's a kind of interesting conversation we got going this afternoon, talking about, I guess, basically freedom of speech and what one should be allowed to say or what one would like to say. I don't know. I'm not sure whether, Simon, did you ever 10 Speakers Corner?
You mean about in Hyde Park? I've walked by it a few times.
Did you spend much time there?
I've probably spent, I don't know, perhaps an hour and a half over my life sort of munning around there and listening to some of the either crazy, bonkers, or interesting people that are there.
Well, a lot of things go on there. I think that could be life's lessons if someone spent some time there. Especially, I think for maybe politicians. In fact, I always thought that they should have a special politicians listening box or listening station at Speaker's Corner. But
you mean where politicians have to sit and listen as opposed to where they speak? They speak too much, right?
yes. Because you mentioned back that people's views. Everybody's got views, and I'm sure 98% of us who have a view on something thinks that it has value, and most of the time it does. But sometimes there are caps that's put on this kind of expression, and we lose a lot in it. And you spoke of civil services. Well, I had an experience of working in two civil service settings, and I can tell you that they differ quite a lot. And I think reference was made to Cayman Civil Service, and I think that has evolved over the years, really in a very positive direction in reference to what the subject is that you're talking about today. And I think we're all the better for it. But I think listening to each other, what each other have to say, because as I said before, I think everyone thinks that what they have to say has value, and most likely it does somewhere along the line. And free speech, I think, will always be under attack, and unless people who prescribe to the thoughts of being able to speak, relatively, should always speak up. And,
yes. Well, let me throw a hypothetical scenario at you. Right now, obviously, we have curfews in Cayman. They come into place, 8 p.m. or something, because restaurants, bars aren't open after that. And you're right, free speech is always under attack, and freedom of movement, freedom of expression. But what's to stop there being in 6 months' time a curfew from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m.? There's no bar or restaurant that can open at those times. Nightclubs have to close by a certain time. Why shouldn't there be a curfew at those points? These things are easily enforced and difficult to be given up sometimes. And so we need to be very careful about having our rights to do what we want to do when we want to do it, provided, of course, there's no public health issues, and we clearly have a public health issue right now. But I'm simply saying that we always need to be on the case of politicians to beat them up when they, I don't mean that literally, I mean that verbally, to criticize and beat them up about decisions when they don't seem to be respectful of the freedoms that we have the right to enjoy. And not because we must always be mindful of the fact not everyone in the world, in fact, a large number of people, many billions of people in this world, don't have freedom. And we live in a very fortunate place that we do, and so we should cherish and protect those.
Right. Cherish and protect it and speak up. Talking about some of the references you made there, I heard an analogy because there's a lot of discussion going on in various jurisdictions about churches not being allowed to congregate or have service, and the analogy was most what they're saying is that because you get a lot of people together, the coronavirus is, you give it more chance to spread. I mean, that's a basic. But the analogy came down to say, well, let's look at people being allowed to drive 85 miles an hour. Now, what if you reduce that speed to 15 to 25 miles an hour for everyone? Don't you think that a lot of lives would be saved?
Absolutely, and yeah, absolutely. Look, it's a great one in some respects because we've had no indigenous deaths. I don't know if indigenous is the right word there, actually, but people who are from Cayman. No, I don't mean people who are born in Cayman, people who lived in Cayman dying from this disease. Whatever word I'm looking for there, we've had none of those people die. We had someone die from a cruise ship, is what I'm getting at, and we have a horrible road fatality rate in Cayman, don't we? If we were to ban cars, we would have solved this death problem that the governments are worried about far more constructively than we're experiencing from this virus pandemic. So if the main concern of governments was to stop undesirable deaths, ban cars tomorrow, problem solved. We're not going to have a car accident. So everything in life is about risk management, and we have to accept, and this is an unpleasant thing to say, but economists do say this, and economists have to say it, but life has a value. If you don't ascribe a monetary value to life, you wouldn't do anything. So in other words, if you didn't ascribe a monetary value to life, you would ban cars tomorrow. But of course, there's an economic benefit to people having cars. There's an economic benefit to flying. There's an economic benefit to these things. Implicitly, that is what is done, and we have to recognise that. And so, risk management is precisely about doing that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that's where it's all at the risk. And I think before I go, thanks to the government for where they've got us so far. And I guess if you look at it from where we're at, we're doing pretty good. So thanks to them for the good job they're doing and interesting conversations. I mean, you have some very diverse thinking processes. So I like to listen to you. Thanks.
Thank you. That's the politest thing anyone's ever said about me. Diverse thinking processes. I like that.
All right, thank you so much. Hey, listen, West Bears can be charming, Simon. So be careful. But no, I join Mr. Lockstein. Thank you for sharing that perspective there. If you wish, pensions, Simon, I certainly want to get into your article and the idea of how we could potentially sort of recover going forward. But pensions and the like.
Yes. Well, I have a view on pensions, and my view is a little bit inflammatory, but why not? Let's go for it. Pensions, I think, pensions are first and foremost a vital tool for society to have. Cayman does not really have a social security net. So if people retire and they have no income because they're too old to work, the health costs are expensive, they need to have a source of income. The government has no means to provide for the large number of people that in 20 years will be retiring. Therefore, you need a pension system. I genuinely don't think you will find any body of economics training who would disagree with that statement. Now, what people disagree with is the process and the function that we have in place. The system that we have in place was designed probably in the 1990s, and it was designed based on protocols that existed elsewhere in the world, introduced in probably the 1980s. And it was based on processes that were best understood at the time, and it was based on countries that had social security systems. Cayman doesn't have a social security system. 1990s was a large number of years ago, although my hair looks like we're back in the 90s. So we've moved on both in our understanding of finance, and we've moved on, we've moved on in our understanding of finance, but the pension industry or the pension rules here in Cayman haven't. We know that Cayman doesn't have a social security system, but we have a pension system that was based on the fact that it does, because it was based on other countries that do have a social security system. So we know when it was created, it wasn't fit for purpose. And we know today that now that education and knowledge has improved, we know that it's even less fit for purpose, and yet we still stick with it. I think for every 2 years for the past, perhaps 10 years or so, I've been on a small work group where we've been talking about potentially reforming the pension rules and laws here in Cayman. I think that's been going on now for about 10 years, and to the very best of my knowledge, it's got absolutely nowhere. So we now have a situation where people who put money into their pension will not categorically have enough money to retire upon. Yes, they will have some money, and yes, that's better than not having any money. But let's not let the adequate get in the way of doing the best, right? It's the inverse of the normal expression. Just because we have something that's better than utter rubbish doesn't mean we should be complacent and stop there, because having nothing would be utterly rubbish. We have something which is inadequate, insufficient, and not fit for purpose. And we're not doing anything about it. And we haven't been doing anything about it for 10 years. And that's a real problem, and we need to do something about it. Now, what should we do about it? Reasonable people can disagree about that, and I have my view. That's not true. I have a few views on that. I haven't actually decided. I haven't actually come to a conclusion as to what I think the right view is. I see value in a range of possibilities, but there is certainly a need to do something, because what we have currently doesn't work, will not lead to the solution that people expect it to lead to, and will not lead to the solution that people hope it to lead to. And if you were to ask an actuary, and I sincerely suggest you never speak to an actuary because they are very mathematical people and they don't normally know how to have conversations, but if you were to speak to one of those people who had magically done some education in personality. I have friends who are actuaries, so I say that jokingly. But if you speak to an actuary, they will tell you that there is no way that anybody in Cayman on the current system will retire with a pension that is in any way remotely adequate for their retirement. End of story. So we need to do something about the pension system. And what we are doing now is letting people take money out of the pension system, which will make the problem a lot worse. Because it seems to me, from what I'm hearing, that 90-odd% of people, maybe 100% of people, are going to be extracting their 25% of their assets, which means that they will have even less money on which to retire. And again, we talked about this on the last show. I have no issue with this policy as it stands, because I think people have personal needs that they need to have enough money to get through difficult times. They should have had this money probably 2 months ago, but that's water under the bridge. So we have a situation which is being made worse, and we will need as a society to have a very open conversation about where we are. We will probably need to start contributing at rates of 20 to 25% of our income in order to have a pension that is sufficient for us to retire on. Currently, we're doing 10%. 10 needs to go to 20 to 25. And that to most people will look like a tax, and it is, and we shouldn't shy away from saying that. But if they don't have it, if we don't do something like that, then we actually will have to have income tax in Cayman. There is no other way about it. Cayman will not be able to pay for its retiring population unless it either has income tax or it changes its pension system dramatically. I would challenge anybody to put a model together that disputes that proposition. And if someone does put a model together that disputes that proposition, I will read that model, and if they're right, I will apologize to them live on air.
All right. We're going to just respectfully pause, take a short break. We got a couple of callers we want to engage, a couple of WhatsApps we want to share with you, Simon. So if this break is as quick as it is, we'll be back shortly.
Christian Enlightenment Center is now open for deliveries. Call and order your favorite inspirational books, journals, Bibles, Bible cases, church supplies, stationery, and many other unique items. Christian Enlightenment Center, your complete Christian bookstore and more. To place your order for delivery, text or WhatsApp 923-8050 or email us at ceccenter@candw.ky. Check out our website at christianenlightenmentcenter.com. Browse items on your Facebook page by clicking Shop to view all our collections. Opening hours 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Monday to Saturday.
During these challenging times, it can be easy to lose sight of all that we have to be grateful for. As the world grapples with the effects of COVID-19, at the forefront of the fight are the many frontline workers diligently ensuring the continuity of our islands. From the police service, members of the National Emergency Operations Center, healthcare workers, the DEH, grocery and pharmacy attendants, and so many more. Along with the daily conch call at 6:59 p.m., Radio Cayman invites the community to call in to talk today, every Friday, for Frontline Fridays. Share your stories and experiences, and let us as a community start the gratitude trend to the many people putting their lives on the front line. Whether you have a family member on the front line and wish to give them a shout out, or if you have a personal experience of Cayman kindness, we want to hear from you. Frontline Fridays, every Friday on Talk Today.
Obey the laws and wear the gauze. Protect your jaws from septic paws. Stay clean, Cayman, with hand sanitizer from $3.25. 10 surgical masks for $9.99 and 2 packs of KN95 masks for $6.99. Wholesale pricing available at all 5 Liquor for Less locations: Shedden Road, North Church Street, Savannah, Northside, and the McClendon Drive Airport location. Don't miss the incredible lockdown price markdown and manager specials exclusively at Liquor for Less. Hundreds of fine, starting from cases of ice cold below wholesale prices, and save $9 off liters. Prices so low we can't say it on the radio. Liquor for Less enforces the wearing of masks and social distancing while in store and encourage other preventative measures to help stop the spread of COVID-19, such as consistent hand washing and only leaving home for essential purposes.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal, and never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up to date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile, saving lives today.
Has being quarantined at home have you looking at your living space differently? Well, Tomlinson Furniture is now offering free island-wide deliveries and phone consultations to help you design a comfortable living space. For inspiration and ideas, browse the Tomlinson Furniture and Mattress Gallery Facebook page, Tomlinson Furniture Cayman on Instagram, or website at tomlinsonfurniture.ky. Open from 9:30 a.m. for phone consultations and orders. Call 949-5383. Tomlinson Furniture and the Mattress Gallery. Free delivery island-wide.
At Cayman National, you can bank from wherever, whenever. Take advantage of 24/7 access to manage accounts, free electronic fund transfers, 20% discount on wire transfers and drafts, and free bill and credit card payments, all while keeping yourself, your loved ones, and the wider Cayman community safe. Sign up for online banking today by submitting your application to cnb@caymannational.com and take advantage of our online banking benefits today. Remember, though socially distant, we are here for you and we are in this together.
All residents are asked to stay at home unless you have permission to work, have to go to a medical facility, pharmacy, bank, or supermarket. If you must go out, remember to stay at least 6 feet from other persons who are not members of your household. This reduces the risk of transmission whether or not a person with coronavirus is showing symptoms. Everyone must wear face masks or other face coverings while taking public transportation, inside buildings, or other public spaces. For more information and to view the new regulations in full, go to www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Home, which should be a haven, can even be less of a safe space during curfew if someone is experiencing child abuse. If you or anyone you know is being abused, help is nearby. For emergencies, call 911. They will redirect your call to the relevant agencies. For general guidelines and inquiries, call the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub, MASH, at 1-800-534-2273 or 945-0545. Alternatively, email mash@gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks for joining us. And we have the excellent company of Mr. Simon Cordray from our Money Sense program. Simon, I believe we have a couple of callers in line, a lot of comments and questions from our WhatsApp. News breaking in seconds, as it were. But let's take the calls, then maybe we can revisit the conversation. Yeah, okay, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you for calling.
Hello?
Good afternoon, sir. As we say, how are you?
Can you hear me?
No, say it again. Can I hear you?
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, no,
Sir?
I'm not joking around. Dwayne, I know that, who's your guest? Because I think he may know me as well, actually. I may know him. I may have played some tennis with him.
You'll be
Anyway,
George? Our guest is Simon Cordray.
Audrey, he might know me. George Ebanks, okay. I'm sure we can have a three-way call it quick. There is something I know that you would really agree, and I know you would agree, that Radio Cayman is the voice of the Cayman Islands. So that's why I'm calling in. Because I think the voice of the Cayman Islands could help with trying to find out why our gasoline prices can never seem to go down here in this island, when right now the global price is about in CI dollars, like $1.55 a gallon. We are currently paying $5 US. If you convert the prices I saw today, about 270% more than what the market prices are. Now, I don't want people to trade at a loss, but I'm willing to even give the importers and the retailers the benefit of having an actually 100% markup between them. But I'm not prepared to give them 275% markup without some explanation. Would Simon be willing to chime in with us and discuss, while you keep me on the line, as to why we should put up as a driving public in the Cayman Islands? Why should we put up with having to pay a surcharge of a 275% markup without no justification, no rationale from the importers of fuel, and it is impacting every fabric of our society, every light bill, every food stock we buy at the supermarket has that very cost built into their operating costs. Why should the voice of the Cayman Islands not join in and try to get an answer as to why off-reg is so impotent? Because they are the government agency that is now charged with trying to find out, to make sure that we're getting prices which are comparable to market prices. Would you and Simon be willing to chime in with me while I hold on, while I wait, and see if I have anything to add as to why the traveling public should be willing to put up a 275% markup on costs, on international, accepted,
Indeed.
easily seen world prices?
Right. And as you said, George, I mean, Simon, so you know, I'm told we have another caller. Of course, the news is at 2 as well. So always good to engage it. But Simon, if you wish, and then, of course, we'll get the caller.
Okay, very quickly, there's 2 points here. One is, I think we need to be very careful about how we assess markups in this context, because we have a situation where we have a number of big oil tanks down in South Sound which start off full and gradually being used, and then they get replenished. So our oil is almost certainly being bought, and our gasoline is being bought a few months ago when oil prices and gasoline prices were completely different to what they are now. So we can't use today's prices as a critique necessarily. On the other hand, and this is a really important point, we have, I'm told, but I know that we have regulatory regimes. We have off-reg, we have one for the communications, we have others for other areas, and as far as I can see, they achieve nothing, because we have amongst the most expensive telephony system anywhere in the world, and so it seems to me as though either more money, different resources, or a different approach needs to be taken in our regulatory environment, because Cayman is full of monopolies or full of duopolies, and it doesn't seem as though we are getting in many cases competitive markets. So I'm going to agree and disagree. I'm going to agree with you, but with the caution that what we see today in gas prices, you can't draw a one-for-one comparison to the States simply because there is a lag.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I don't agree. I know you say you had another call, but I just tell Simon that I know that we are being ripped off. It's price gouging, and we shouldn't put up with it, really.
Oh, hang on a second. You may be right, What I'm simply saying, and what I'm simply saying is, don't look at today's gasoline prices in the forecourts and compare them to what they are in the States. That's a bad maths. If you want to make your argument compelling, you need to look at today's prices and compare them to where they were in the States probably 6 to 8 weeks ago, because that's the right analysis. So that's, if we want to be pure in terms of our scientific approach to getting analysis right, let's get it right, and then our arguments have more power. So I don't know, you may well be right, as I say, but the rigor of the analysis is really important. So let's get the analysis right, compare like with like, and then our analysis will be more persuasive.
Right, but just to close off by saying that this is not something which is happening just now. From 9 months ago, when prices were as comparable to $60 to $70 a barrel.
So you're right.
We were paying prices here which were comparable to when the per barrel price was $190 a barrel. So
and you're right on that. But what I'd say is what we need to do is there needs to be a fundamental rethinking in Cayman, a fundamental rethinking of competition policy and the allowance of monopolies and cartels and duopolies to exist, because they do. It's clear, it's obvious, and you may well have hit upon one obvious example, but the telecoms industry is clearly another obvious example, and I could probably name another 5 or 6.
All right.
That's it for today. That's it
All right,
for
George,
today. We'll agree that we're being ripped off.
Samuel, I think we could probably squeeze another call in if I'm told correctly. Okay. So let's do that. Hey, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. How are you today?
Very thankful, sir. Yourself?
Right, thankful. That's what I like to hear. God is good, my friend. Who you got on the guest today?
The excellent company of Simon Cordry. He's one of the hosts of our Money Sense program. He may describe himself as not being too handsome, but he's always helpful. Good fellow he is, man.
Yeah, but anyway, the voice sounds familiar, but I heard him earlier. I was just thinking I was driving up, but I just stopped to make the call. But he's talking about, they were talking something about the pensions, and that the people, they won't be able to retire on their pension because there's not enough money going in there. Now, my question is this. If government and the merchants of this island would agree to pay a living wage for the people of this island, the poor people of this island, they would have a little money in there because the inflation has destroyed this island. Then at the same time, they didn't raise the minimum wage to a decent wage, a living wage, because I go back to the 1970s and I say that was the best. The 10 years that era was the best decade of the century, when people were making, construction workers and laborers and stuff like that was making $8.50 an hour. It was the across the board. Okay? And those at $8.50, you could buy a gallon of milk, you could get a gallon of gas, you could buy a pack of cigarettes and still have money to put aside.
Okay.
Today we're paying $6. You think about this now. This is back in 70. That's 40, 50 years ago. Okay? And today we're paying $6.50 minimum wage. And they're bringing in all these, this is what destroying Cayman. They're bringing in all these expat workers that $6 to them is a fortune. And they send it all back off the island. They don't spend no money here. And here the poor people of the Cayman Islands are the ones that are suffering. And I would love to see somebody in government say the time has come now to have a minimum of $10 an hour for poor people.
Well, that's a perspective, and with great respect, let's pause, go to the news. Simon, when we come back, we certainly invite you to share as you wish, man. Always appreciate it. But talk about, the road to recovery. How can we recover? All right. When we come back, we'll talk today.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman.
It's only two species that we have, on the island.
Generations present.
Your voice, your choice. For today's biggest news.
Access.
Local, regional, international. This is headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom team.
Today's biggest news.
Lawmakers blow through a number of bills after the opposition walks out of the session, paving the way for quick work. 11 amendment bills were passed Wednesday night, mostly dealing with the financial services industries and government's efforts to get Cayman removed from the European Union's recent list of non-cooperative jurisdictions. A 2-day-old baby has died with coronavirus in South Africa, one of the world's youngest victims of the virus. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg has told the BBC that it will remove any content likely to result in, quote, immediate or imminent harm to users. It removed the Brazilian president's claims that scientists had proved there was a coronavirus cure. Sicily's coronavirus coordinator and 9 other healthcare officials have been arrested, suspected of taking bribes from equipment and services contracts, according to Italian police. A new report has found that U.S. roads have become more lethal, even though Americans are driving less due to quarantine and stay-at-home orders. Those are your headlines. I'm Carsley Fuller.
Your 2 p.m. headlines brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Social distancing is crucial for our community to get back to normal. And never before has communication been so crucial. Keeping in touch with family, friends, and up-to-date requires you to stay in touch. Green Turtle offers the solution for both. Download the Green Turtle app now. Top up yours or a loved one's phone with any mobile carrier in any destination in Cayman. Phones delivered to your home, and with the new rewards program, you can even redeem points towards a new phone and other products. Download the Green Turtle app today. Green Turtle is not only the future of mobile, but today it can help save a life. Hashtag Stay Home Cayman. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app, the future of mobile, saving lives today.
Stay in touch with Radio Cayman for the latest in news and information.
Follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, www.radiocayman.gov.ky.
Radio Cayman, your voice, your choice, your radio.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back, and thanks again. Thank you all too for listening. And Simon, man, it is truly a pleasure to have you on. Not just your company, but the insight and the perspective you give. So thanks very much, man. Now, as we're chatting, are you able to hear me still, Simon? Have I disconnected you? Okay. Yeah, we have our guest, Sir Simon Cordry. You know him from our Money Sense program. And sometimes, we're leveraging our technology to make sure that we have all in all. And are you there, Simon? Okay, we'll get him connected up in a second. Maybe he's finally been tapped for his intellect and insight. Okay, Simon, welcome back.
I'm here, Sterling. Are we good for conversation here?
We're good, man. And thank you too for sharing your time with us. I know our program goes, because there is no press briefing today. We'll go to 2:30. I know you have much on your schedule, and you've been gracious with your time.
I've got a good 10 minutes. I can still annoy more listeners by saying a few more things. Fear not about that. But we do have a sword of Damocles hanging over us about the minimum wage. I want to say one word on that. And
Yes,
something
please.
I want to say about pensions. So the caller before raised the issue of minimum wage, and he really shouldn't have done, because it's a fascinating one for economists. So I could spend probably an hour and a half giving people an analysis of minimum wage studies. But suffice to say, in the 80s, 80% of economists thought that a minimum wage was a terrible idea. It would destroy jobs. And then we introduced the minimum wage in a lot of countries, and it started to raise the minimum wage, and those jobs didn't get destroyed. And economists suddenly had to go back to school and figure out why that wasn't the case. It's still not entirely clear why it isn't the case. There's still some work that needs to be done. But what the caller was saying is, what would happen? Why wouldn't we raise the minimum wage? And typically, someone will say, raise the minimum wage or destroy jobs. That argument is no longer true. But that doesn't mean that the flip side of the argument, raise the minimum wage, improve living standards, is also true. That may not necessarily be the case. And it's also not clear to me, and it's very difficult to get the data on this, so I think we need to be tread gently. But it's not clear to me that there are many Caymanians working on the minimum wage. So if the caller's argument is raise the minimum wage, help Caymanians on the low income stream get higher income, it seems to me that most of the people working on the minimum wage are probably in the service, in the hospitality industry or the building industry or the retail industry, and that's typically not the Caymanian population, from what I see when I go to restaurants, bars, building sites. So we just need to treat that one with a little bit of care. I'm not disagreeing with him to say that increasing the minimum wage could be a good thing for society. It may well be, and an economist couldn't, as they might once have done, simply say, what a stupid idea that is. No, there's much more nuance than it used to be. But we just need to think of that one. I think that needs a little bit more thought than just the sound bites that otherwise we can risk coming out with. So I don't want to draw a conclusion on that particular point.
Fair enough.
One thing, if I could, though, Sterling, just want to talk. There's something about the pension thing, which is someone sent me a WhatsApp. I know we talked about pensions and said, why can't pensions invest in local assets? Why shouldn't pensions be investing in roads? Why shouldn't they be investing in affordable housing and those sorts of things? I'm trying to find the exact narrative that was asked. I think it was roads, housing loans, affordable housing, local investments, CUC, water company, and such like. And I think the first thing to say is, I've already said the pension system is not fit for purpose, and it is a shame on this island and those who have been in power for the last 15 years that they have not done anything about it. They are responsible for the situation we are in, and we should do something about it. There are better solutions that could happen. Now, I've heard stories that I've heard people at one end of the spectrum say we need to shake up the private sector system and increase more liberalism. Fine. And then the other end of the spectrum, it's we should nationalize the pension system. Fine. That's two ends of a spectrum. I'm not sure necessarily you always want to go to the extreme, and there are potential faults with both. What I would say is that I always personally get incredibly nervous when I hear politicians talking about something needs to be state managed. Typically, and I don't think I'll surprise anyone when I say this, it's not common for governments to spend money wisely. Governments typically over budget and then blow through their budgets. I mean, how many government programs have you met which have been under budget and under time? Very few, whether that be Cayman, the US, Canada, the UK, France, Germany, Australia, anywhere in the world, governments are pretty poor at managing money. And the less money we give to governments, frankly, the better. And the less control governments have with our money, frankly, the better. Because, again, it's a slippery slope to what happened in Argentina, which is, governments are going to control your money, and then all of a sudden, actually, governments are going to take your money. So governments controlling your money and governments having control over quickly can lead to, in the wrong circumstances, government taking your money. So the more distance we can put between governments and our money, it's our money, remember, the better I think we would all be. That doesn't mean that the system that we operate under can't be organized better. It absolutely can. And the fact that it hasn't, as I say, is a shame on everybody who's been involved in government for the last 15 years. They know it can be done better. They've had consultants upon consultants upon consultants tell them, and they've done nothing. And we have, there is such a. I don't know how many people know this. You're obviously hitting a nerve with me here. We have something in the national pension law for the private sector, which says that the private sector must waste. Sorry, it doesn't say waste, but let me sort of editorialize. It must waste members' money, so it must waste the money of everyone who has a pension getting an actuarial report. Why is that a waste of money? Because these are defined contribution pension plans. There is no such thing as an actuarial report, which is useful because it's the government that sets what the contribution levels are. So the actuarial report will always come back and say you are not paying in enough to give people retirement. And what do the government do with those reports? They throw them in the bin and don't look at them. So we are spending money. But the government is telling the private sector to spend money wastefully because of what the law says. So people's returns are being worsened by government law. And that is such a preposterous situation. There are small changes which could be important. There are big changes which would be even better. But there are things that could be done, but no one is doing anything about it. It's not like they're not aware these things are out there. They've been talked about for 15 years. Anyone who claims otherwise is just wrong.
Okay.
I'm being
Well,
polite now.
I want a day when you're, more candid. Let's go to the phones though and take this other caller. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for sharing. Hey, good afternoon.
Hello, Mr. Dwayne.
Hi, my friend. How are you today?
Taking it easy, listening.
All right, man.
What a good show.
Always great when we have people like you listening and a guest with the caliber of Simon joining us. So thank you for sharing, man.
Yes, sir. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Simon for giving such a, good view on how the government actually running things or looking out for us, from a certain point of view. Because us, we stuck in a bubble. We can't see outside the bubble, So, but really and truly, if the government would realize that the people they think that are servants or that are, actually their masters, I would really see them behave different. But I would like to know. What gives them the impression that they are our masters. I want to understand how they got that impression, what they did.
You are venturing into territory that is way beyond my pay grade. So that would put a psychologist into full-time employment trying to answer questions like that, and I'm not remotely qualified. But I think your point is totally valid, that politicians are elected servants of the people and should remain so, and should, in an ideal world, our money is our money, and the less that the grubby hands of the government are touching our money, the better. Now, that sort of leads to something that I know Sterling wants me to say a few words about, which is how we come out of this recovery. Because I wrote an article last week in the. Am I allowed to say the Compass, Sterling? Is that allowed on Radio Cayman?
I don't think you're allowed to say the Compass. I mean, are you saying the Compass? That you wrote an article in the Compass last week? All right.
Yeah.
Yes, all right.
So I wrote an article and I talked about how government should actually increase its borrowing to get us out of this problem. And someone sent me a message over the weekend saying, I've always considered myself a child of Reagan, Thatcher, and what on earth are we doing? But actually, I agree with you that we should be allowing government spending. So when you've got people like that who are thinking government spending is good or potentially good, then we need to evaluate, well, what do we mean by that? And what I wanted to be very clear about is government borrowing doesn't necessarily mean government spending. Just because government borrows money doesn't mean that government has to be the puller of the purse strings associated with it. Singapore doesn't do that. Other countries don't do that. Norway has a huge amount of sovereign wealth, which it puts in independent, separate powers, and that's the sort of thing that should happen. So governments are typically, and I'm not picking on Cayman here, although people may well think I am, that's fine, don't care. I'm saying this generally. Governments typically are very wasteful of people's money. Now, given that function, we know that the private sector generally isn't wasteful, because if the private sector does bad, they get fired, they get closed down. You can't really close down a government. So there are so many entrepreneurial people in Cayman. Cayman wouldn't exist were it not for the entrepreneurial spirit of the Caymanian population. What we need to do is to engineer an entrepreneurial zeitgeist, if you like, whereby people can be motivated and financed and resourced to set up businesses, to set up new enterprises, to help Cayman become a different place to what it is. And that talent is here. Often, because we're in a small community, we have no stock market here. We have very limited sources of financing. The banking sector, rightly, they're banks. They have to behave prudently, have to behave cautiously. They're not typically financing startup ventures. That's kind of dangerous for them. They typically like to lend against property. So there needs to be a new way, a fund which would be supported by government borrowing, costing peanuts nowadays because interest rates are so low, could very easily help energize those sorts of things if it were properly administered and free from the clutches of favored interests, political interests, and basically funding your best friend. And if we're being honest about it, corruption as well. We don't want to have those sorts of things anywhere in Cayman, and keeping them out of government hands is by far and away the best way of avoiding those things.
Yeah, I hear you and I agree. What you see when it comes to the private sector have this thing that is called lobbying. When they lobby for that they are going to be the beneficiary of any outcome, and the rest of us just sit here, get fired, hired, fired again. You know what I mean? That seems to me like the government either owns part of the private sector, or they sleep and drink with the private sector, or they just looking out for that. Because when the private sector talks about hiring a Caymanian, you can almost hear some of the worst descriptions of a Caymanian coming from that private sector in Cayman.
Yeah, well, look, you're gonna get me started on a path of anger again if you're not careful, because I tried to put an advert up on the government's new system, and it took me 2.5 months to get my company's approval to post an advert on the government's new system. 2.5 months, and in that time I couldn't. That's how you're supposed to try and encourage Caymanians to apply for your job, because that's where their unemployed Caymanians are able to look. 2.5 months it took me. That's how inefficient. Why do we have a government-run system for recruitment? We have so many very good private sector recruitment agencies which could be motivated with carrots and sticks to help find jobs for Caymanians. Why on earth do we need another system which doesn't work? And I can tell you it doesn't work because it took me 2.5 months, and that doesn't work. That's just ridiculous.
And really, if you really think, I mean, in Caymanians, they have to come and realize that if they think that it's going to open back up to go to the same thing where we get paid $5, $7 an hour, where they never raised the minimum wage in how many years? 30 years? You think that we're going to just rush and go back out there and hawk for $5 again? I mean, come on, man.
Yeah, but I think that's. I understand your point, but it's the issue I have, and I come back to this point about economists and minimum wage. It's very easy for politicians to seemingly get votes by promising a rise in the minimum wage, but I'm not sure we have the data here in Cayman to indicate how that would help a Caymanian. So it's not clear to me that while it seems like an easy solution, is actually a solution that would work. Now, if we can get the data, if we can understand how many Caymanians are employed at what threshold of income level, then that would be quite a helpful tool. But of course, it's not easy to collect that information in Cayman because we don't have a tax system, we don't record those things. So I'm just a little unsure. There's not many people working in the finance industry on minimum wage, and that's where a lot of Caymanians are employed. So I'm just not clear that the soundbite of raise the minimum wage is necessarily going to have the effect that people want it to have. Maybe it will, but I don't know.
Well, of course, your eyes won't see that because maybe you're a member of the private sector, right? You wouldn't want to pay more of a minimum wage, right?
Well, that doesn't make sense either, though, because if you gave me a choice of hiring somebody and their value is $10 an hour, I'll pay $10 an hour. If you told me that person costs $15 an hour, you're right. I wouldn't hire them. I'll hire someone in Canada. That's what happened in the fund administration industry. There were lots of Caymanians employed in the fund administration industry in 2000 to 2010. That became too expensive, and they were all unemployed from the fund administration industry because all those jobs went to Halifax, Nova Scotia. So again, it's not always clear to me that the consequences are always as well thought through as we think about when we talk about these things.
But Simon, if I may, sorry, Daniel, with respect to that move, we see the banks doing something similar with the call centers and the like. That move to Halifax in particular, was that because the cost operation from the demand perspective of the employees here asking for higher wages? What
No, people were hired. So I think at the time a fund administrator was being paid if I get the numbers wrong, sorry, but the scale I'm talking about, the relative scale is right. They were paying paid $50,000 for a qualified accountant to do some fund accounting and fund administration. And the same person was being able to be hired in Halifax for about 25, so half price. Same qualifications, exactly the same qualifications. And so there's a cost of living issue here in Cayman. Now, we benefit from that because we have a high quality of living as well. The service standards are relatively good. But Cayman's not a cheap place. In fact, Cayman is slowly, there's an analogy here. We all know the analogy of the frog being boiled alive in a pot of water. That's happening to Cayman right now in the financial industry because we are being suffocated. Although I don't know if you can be suffocated and boiled at the same time. But we're being suffocated like that frog, slowly but surely by regulation. And our economy is rested basically on finance and tourism. Tourism's being killed until next year. Finance is slowly suffocating. And what's the next legs of our economy? There aren't that many, and our cost competitiveness is terrible. Genuinely terrible. I hear increasingly people saying Cayman's expensive. Cayman's slow. The regulatory regime is slow in Cayman. The cost base in Cayman's expensive. Those are bad things when people internationally are saying that about our country, and that's 60% of our economy. Those are very bad things, and we're doing nothing about those. And in some respects, we can't do anything about them because some of those things are being forced upon us by international regulators.
All right. Well, here, Daniel, thanks for calling. Any final points from you, Daniel? Okay, appreciate it. Samuel, with that point, though, and certainly the invite is always to have you join us whenever you feel inclined, but that point with respect to the cost and the perception and the standard of living and paying for it, with the outsourcing or the relocation of the accountants, for instance, the cost of accounting to Halifax, 50% of the cost. Two things, though. Those decisions are being made at the business level for economic reasons without much recourse or redress by the country to say, well, you're benefiting from the environment, you can now outsource. Not unlike we've heard architects complain of in the past where they could get drafting services in other jurisdictions for a fraction of what it would cost to employ the same level of architecture or engineering on island.
Yeah, and it seems very easy sometimes, doesn't it, to say, well, we should just stop people outsourcing, because that way we could say, no, if you want to be a fund administrator or fund accountant or an architect in Cayman, you must live and operate in Cayman. But all of a sudden then what happens is you're basically turning into China, almost state-run, because it's the government tells businesses which businesses can exist and which can't. And so Cayman would simply become a less competitive place. That's to my mind, and this is only my view, but that's a terrible solution to a free market that exists elsewhere in the world. If people found Cayman to be unresponsive to international pressures and simply become more insular, people would just simply ignore us. They have no need. No one in the world has any need to do any business in Cayman if they don't want to. They choose to use Cayman because it's valuable to them. If we change that value proposition, we'd gone.
All right, let me ask two things then. One, that same analogy could be applied to companies here employing people, whether in hospitality or retail or other areas where the labor cost is significantly, to the caller's point, they can get somebody for $1, $2, $3, $4, $5, whatever some per hour, who is willing to work for that lower income, because back home the exchange rate is so much better. So it seems like the companies who are going to Halifax to employ an accountant for 50% of the cost, the companies here are employing lower skill, lower wage workers because financially they can pay less. Isn't it the same?
But that argument sort of implies that there was a Caymanian doing that job before, and that Caymanian is being undercut by somebody else, and there is these thousands of Caymanians who are unemployed because of this cheap labor. I'm not sure the statistics show that.
No, they may not, but then could it be that it would be potential a barrier to entry, the foreign worker on the lower sense of the economic ladder, who is willing to work for $5 or $10 an hour, for instance, because they somehow can manage to live here, and the person who's living here say, well, I can't survive. Argument aside as to why, is just like the person who was in the financial services sector, the fund administration, who was, as you shared, gainfully employed, 50,000, for argument's sake, and now that is being outsourced to Halifax for 25,000. The same thing, right?
Well, I think they're different. I think one is the competitive environment that Cayman finds itself in. It's just an expensive place because we have some of these regulations. You know, if you want to hire a fund accountant in Cayman, you have to pay, was it $15,000 a year in terms of work permit fee? So maybe the same fund accountant in Cayman could be hired at $30,000, but then you add on the $15,000 in work permits, and that's $45,000. So that perhaps explains it. So we are sometimes creating a rod for our own backs with some of the rules and regulations we have now. I don't want anyone to get me wrong and say I want to overthrow the work permit scheme. There's a lot of value in that. I was just using that as an example, but we should always remember that sometimes the unintended consequences of rules and regulations that we have can be quite unpleasant.
Something, and it's not politics, but I keep telling people everything's in politics, and politics is in everything. MLA Chris Saunders had made a suggestion way back when that perhaps when we're looking at work permit fees, for want of a better term, the accountant, the higher earning person, the surgeon, what have you, instead of charging $100,000 for that work permit, maybe it's $1. No, he didn't say it that way, but the person for whom we can get just about anybody to work for that work permit could be $100,000. In a sense, trying to, I'm paraphrasing, and hopefully I haven't gotten what he was saying incorrectly. Various skill sets are higher, the expertise and training are much more in depth. You don't charge a lot for that.
That's a really interesting one, and I've given a bit of thought to that. And one thing that strikes me is, let's say let's say someone tomorrow wanted to set up a new company, and there just was not. So coming in tomorrow wants to set up a new company, and they need to hire someone to fulfill a specific need, and there's no one in Cayman with that qualification. People may dispute the scenario, but let's just pretend that exists. Well, it immediately costs them potentially $15,000 to hire somebody. So the entrepreneurial spirit may actually be being harmed by the cost of getting somebody in a startup business like that. So I wonder whether there's a scenario where work permit fees could be, for startup businesses, actually waived for a period of time and then increased. And as you say, perhaps there is a gradating scale, which is people who have been longer are clearly therefore arguably more valuable and therefore could be affording to pay higher things. I think there's a lot of benefit in reevaluating how the work permit system works to further entrepreneurialism in Cayman.
Indeed. Simon, we could talk for days and always learn more. Thank you for your time, and apologies to Ms. Susan, but I think I got the consent of Ms. Norman to take a few seconds extra. Simon, we'll talk to you again very soon. When is the next Money Sense program coming up?
It is what day is today? Thursday today, is it?
I think
next week. Next Thursday.
Yeah. Is it Thursday or is it November? I'm not sure. Yeah, it's like so next Thursday morning.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, 7:30 next week.
Okay, people can go online to get you if they want to see past shows as well.
I think we're on Twitter apparently, and we have if you type in Money Sense Cayman, you'll go to some past shows and all those sorts of things appear.
Okay, right here on Radio Cayman next Thursday morning. We get to hear you and your colleagues. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. We'll chat again some more.
Fabulous, thanks,
Simon Cordray, man, a gentleman, a scholar, a handsome individual, and always, witted. Just a pleasure to chat with. So, Susan, thank you for letting me impose for a few extra minutes, and trust you'll enjoy the rest of the afternoon. Any song that you play by Billy Joel, Miss Susan, I'll always enjoy listening to it. Anything you play. And to our listeners, join me start in the morning for the record. The press briefing is scheduled for tomorrow, probably around 2 p.m. It's a 3P, as some will call it. But until then, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Fidelity Bank. For all your banking needs, visit fidelitygroup.com. Fidelity, we're good for you.
Also brought to you by greenturtle.ky. Take a ride on the Green Turtle Express today. Download the Green Turtle app. The future of mobile. Saving lives today.
Stop the spread of coronavirus by washing your hands with soap frequently. If none is available, use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Stay at home whenever you can. Avoid close contact with people outside your household by staying a minimum of 6 feet apart and wear a mask while in public. For more information, go to www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
After all that talk, sit back, relax. Easy listening on the way. You're listening to Susan on the PM Show.